Hey everybody, Michael Raso, FPP. I'm here today to talk about the Fujica 8T3. And with me, John Fideli.
Hello.
The Fujica 8T3 was made in 1961, and this camera takes what's known as regular 8mm or double 8 film. Film is photosensitive, so this is just a test roll, so I'm not worried about exposing it. Double 8, a regular 8mm film, is 16mm in width. And as you can see, when you shoot this in your camera, you will be exposing it 2 times to make an 8mm frame. And your camera will shoot one side of your film with your movie. And then when it rolls out, you will flip the reel, and then you will shoot side 2, and you will get another 8mm series of 8mm movies. How is it 8mm film 50 feet if you're shooting a 25-foot roll? Well, that's because you're shooting both sides. In the lab, the film is slit and put on a 50-foot roll of 8mm film if it's a projectable Ektachrome positive film or black and white positive film that you can project in a vintage projector, or it stays in this configuration if it's a negative film and the film is slit electronically. Okay, let's load this camera. How do you load it? In the Fujica, here's your film compartment. Make sure your camera has what's known as a take-up spool. This is where your roll of film goes. And in this particular camera, you need to open the film gate. Here is your film gate. Your film will travel behind this, through the gate, get exposed, and then get taken up here. That's how it works, nice and smooth. You open up your film gate with this lever. Your film, always remember, it only goes in one way. So always remember that the emulsion side, that's a light sensitive side of your film, always faces out towards your lens. The black shiny side is your film base. So you will take your roll of film, side 1, and you will take your take-up spool. You will put your film on your take-up spool. You will roll it a little bit. You will do this in dim light. You have to do this in dim light or no light, whichever is more comfortable for you. This is known as a daylight spool. So this does protect your film, but you don't want to do this in blazing sun. You'll expose and flash your film. So now that you have your film prepped, you put your film on the post. Just keep in mind the arrows on any camera most of them have arrows. So you put your film on the post, as so, very nice. Now you put it behind, you sandwich the film in that open slot, put your take-up spool on the post, there we go. Now you have to make sure that the film is seated properly. Oh, there we go, kind of clicked in. Okay, you close your film gate. And now confidence is pretty high. Let's see if it is working. Sweet. Sweet. Close your film compartment. Remember, once you load your film, do not open it again to check your film. Every time you open it, you will expose and you will kind of mess up your home movie. When you're shooting, once the film is loaded, there's like a little thing in there, an indicator, so you know you're rolling because this will start swirling about. Check it out. Look at that.
Oh.
That means your film is going through your camera. That's a great way to know whether, you've run out of film. Here are the frames per second. So the red is highlighted because 16 frames per second is the normal for 8mm. With this particular camera, you could do 12, 24, or 32. I highly recommend you shoot at 16. This camera has a light meter built in, but it's what's known as a
Selenium.
Thank you. It's a selenium cell meter, and when people leave their camera on the garage shelf for 40 years, Everyday light hits it, it burns out the selenium meter. This is not an automatic camera, but it does have a built-in light meter, which doesn't work. And normally you would set your ISO, back then it was called ASA, to what ISO film you're shooting. So 40 ISO is the perfect speed for these older cameras. Here is your frame counter. So it starts at 0, and as you progress through your roll, it will click towards 25 feet. But you also have the barbershop pulley thing here, which also tells you whether your camera is still shooting actual film. Here is your wind-up. This camera does not take any batteries. You simply have to wind up your camera. Here are your lenses. This is a turret lens system. It's wonderful because you have 3 different focal lengths. I always wondered, like, what position is the lens in? Like, how do you know where to, put it, of what you're actually shooting through? So I put a little cheat notification here. I put this little white thing, little piece of tape. That tells me when I'm out just shooting run and gun, I know that the lens I want to shoot with needs to be in this position. Just a little homemade cheat sheet. This camera comes with a normal view 13mm lens, a beautiful wide angle 6.5mm lens, which I prefer, and a telephoto 26mm lens. This camera opens up to f1.9, wonderful, and it stops all the way down to f22. So as you adjust this, it changes the aperture of your camera behind the lens of how much light is hitting your film. And the way you will be able to determine what f-stop to use is by using a handheld light meter app or light meter, since this one doesn't work. And at 16 frames per second, you're shooting the shutter speed is 1/30th of a second, combined with the ISO of the film, ISO 40. You take those readings of what you're shooting, and then you will see what the f-stop is. When you're done shooting side 1, you will need to flip your reel and shoot the second side. Open up your camera. Here's your roll. Your film is now on your take-up spool. You will take off your film from your take-up spool, flip it. Some rolls actually have numbers on them. This one does. Just remember, the take-up spool that came in your camera always remains empty when you're done shooting your roll of film. Take your feed film, which is now empty, flip it. Okay. Now you will put your film on your take-up spool. Now this can get confusing, but always remember one important thing, that your film sensitive side always faces out towards the lens, and then you're golden. Open your film gate, put your film on the post, follow the arrows so that the film goes behind. Nice. Put your take-up spool on its post. Okay, now your films are on their proper post. Make sure your film is seated properly. It is not seated properly right now. That will cause all sorts of problems. So you need to seat it. There we go. Now it's behind the lens, in between, sandwiched between your pressure plate and the film gate. You close it. And now you're ready to wind up your camera and shoot side 2. This is a really awesome camera. It's great because of the various features it has that allows you to see the film as it runs through the camera, the various lenses. As you change your lenses, the view actually changes in your eyepiece. Really amazing. It's a great camera. You can find these fairly inexpensively on eBay.com. I always ask sellers, hey, can you wind up the camera? Is the motor running? I ask some questions before plucking down my $20. That's it for today. If you have any questions, please leave them down below or shoot me an email, michael@filmphotographyproject.com. We'll see you super soon. Captain 4 to go to that location also.